Hey everybody, welcome to this Sales Hacker webinar. I'm so glad you could join us today. I'm your host today, Colin Campbell. I'm the Director of Marketing at Sales Hacker, and today we are talking about account planning, which is a topic that I've been waiting to cover on this webinar series for a really, really long time. You guys know we do these twice a week, talk about all kinds of stuff. Haven't talked about account planning before, so I'm psyched. We're going to talk about how to do it, how it can help create alignment across all your revenue teams, how it can help with forecasting, how account maps are an important part of account planning, all kinds of stuff. We have some amazing folks here to share their experience and insights with us. First up is Peter Chun, VP of Sales at Lucidchart. Peter, thanks for joining us.
Hey everyone, thank you for having me.
So psyched to have you here. And also Kevin Dorsey, the VP of Inside Sales at Patient Pop. Kevin, glad to have you here too.
Excited for this, y'all. Let's do this.
This is going to be great. So if you've joined a Sales Hacker webinar before, you know that we keep these really interactive. That's what sets these webinars apart from all the other ones. Today, we're just going to have a conversation. We want you to be part of the conversation. You're part of the live version right now for a reason. Sorry if you're watching the recorded version later. If you're in the live one, go down to the bottom of your screen right now, open that Q&A box, because that's how you can ask questions to Peter, Kevin, or myself, but you probably don't want my opinion. Open up the Q&A box right now and just let us know who's here. So tell us your title, tell us where you work, tell us if you use account planning right now, how you're doing it. If you want to drop a question in there early so we make sure we get to it, go ahead and throw it in. And while you're all doing that and introducing yourselves, which I'm going to wait until you do because I know you're there. I'm just going to also let you know we're recording this. So if you have to step away, I know end of quarter is coming up. Don't worry about it too much. We'll send you the recording. You can watch it later, share it with your colleagues. Hi, Bianca Chavez. I'm so bad with, I'm good with names until I get on a webinar, and then I read people's names and I can't do it. Hi, Bianca. Thanks for joining. And folks, if you feel like using the chat instead, you can do that too. All right, so Michael Klein's here. He's an SDR at Carrot from Redwood City. He's selling to enterprises, uses Zoom info, outreach, and timing and messaging for account planning. Okay, Michael. Jackie at 6plus, she's the head of concierge or client success team, hasn't done account planning yet. Jackie, you're gonna love this. Bianca's a sales manager for Quality Suites San Diego in the SeaWorld area, very cool. Diane, the Philadelphia Inquirer, you're an advertising sales exec selling print and digital advertising, looking for a new planning method. Got some great ideas for you. Also some what not to do's from yours truly. Jeff Powers is demand generation team lead at Dash Hudson. This is a good diverse group. And the cool thing about account planning is that it does apply to all cycles of the client life cycle. So it's like, it's good for SDRs, it's good for AEs, it's good for after the sale too. You need that broad understanding of your whole account, your whole customer across all your revenue teams. So, all right, let's get into it. Thanks for joining everybody. Really happy you're here. Remember to ask questions. We're here for you. Peter, can you help me set the stage a little bit here? I think people maybe think about different things when they think about account planning. Mm-hmm. So let's like put some guardrails on it. What are we talking about account planning today? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, so there, like you mentioned, there's different definitions, different methodologies. I think the best way to think about it for today's conversation is account planning is this resource or this tool that you can use to be able to if you're a rep, to be able to be more effective as you work with your customers. What does that mean, being more effective? Whether it's a lower deal cycle, a decreased deal cycle, or increased deal size. From the rep perspective, from the leadership perspective, it's a great, easy way to make your teams work transparent and help your team be accountable and help hold yourself accountable to your company leadership.
And so when we say account planning, we're really talking about like a process or a framework, not necessarily just like a document or an account map.
That's correct. Yep.
Right.
It's
okay.
all of that all together.
Yeah. And I know like Kevin, for you, for instance, you guys don't necessarily always use an actual document, right? For you, it's just a process. Is that true?
Yeah, it's checking the boxes on the things that we know, if we know about an account, will lead to a more successful sales process. So, we don't have to do a multi-level org chart and, all the different departments because we're going to SMB, but there are key 7 or 8 things that we know if we learn about an account before we go after it and go into it, leads to a higher chance of success. So that's how we go after our accounts.
Got it. Yeah. So to everybody joining, really the way we're thinking about account planning today, and the way you should think about it, at least for the next hour, is we're talking about a process or a framework, and the way that is put into action can change depending on your organization or your team or your customer or your process. All right. So free your mind of whatever you've done up until now. We're going to talk about a few different shapes that this can take. So really the reason we're talking about account planning is because our enemy in sales is single threading, especially when we have maybe like more than one person on the buyer committee.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead, Peter. I know you got like a party going on in the background. I know it's like the stand-up, right?
I didn't get the message that we're doing our webinar here, but
they're psyched.
That's absolutely right. I think what causes a lot of people to adopt account planning is this idea that, or we find ourselves being single-threaded within an account. There's so much that can go wrong within a sales process. Whether you are working a more transactional SMB type sales transaction, or you're doing a more strategic type of sales approach, there's just so much that can go wrong. And account planning is that mechanism to make sure that you're checking all the boxes, to make sure you know which boxes to even check, and it provides that framework to be able to do so.
Right. And I know, Kevin, like you were talking about, your biggest fear is that you're going to miss a sale because you just haven't gone broad enough, that it feels like such an easy miss to not just go broad enough. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think more often than not, sales reps don't know what it's like to actually buy. And we talk about this often. Sales reps don't know what it's like to be demoed. They don't know what it's like to be prospected, and they sure don't know what it's like to buy something. And if they had a better understanding of how a person and an account buys, that's what account planning is. Like really in a nutshell, it's like, how do accounts behave and operate so that you can fit into that ecosystem, right? So oftentimes reps don't know how wide to go. Or they never get to the unspoken person, right? This person behind the curtain, right? We called them Oz for a long time, where it's like, who's the Oz at an account that you don't even know about because you didn't ask, right? And so when you only work one point of contact, or you only try to get through on one point of contact. I mean, we might get to this later on, but we're riffing about, you go top down or bottoms up, right? If you only have one point of entry, you will lose almost always. And that's from prospecting to deal to negotiation to close, and even to CS, which I don't think is talked about enough, is account planning for CS, right? More often than not, that stays single threaded too, which is a big, big problem. I don't hear many people talk about, like no one goes there and they need to.
Really bad. Yeah. I mean, I can talk about that for a second. I never really mastered it, but that biggest problem, I spent 6 years in account management at a marketing agency. And we knew that anytime one of our main points of contact left one of our clients, we were probably going to get fired, if not immediately, within the next 12 months as the agency. That business was gone if they were our only point of contact. So we used to talk about bench depth. Like if you have multiple points of contact, different ways of being involved with people on the client side, that's a risk avoidance. Okay, so we're talking about likelihood to close, greater ability to forecast. At the very least, or at the best, actually, if you only have one point of contact, it's a crapshoot whether that deal is going to close. You may or may not have the right person. My favorite angle on this, Kevin, is what you said about how like this just reflects the way a buyer buys. This isn't about us salespeople coming up with like a devious plan to weave our way through every contact at the account because it's what we want. It's the buyer has relationships on their end. There might be more than one buyer. Maybe it's not a buyer. And like their process should reflect the way we try to help them find the best deal for them.
Yeah. And I think and I want to jump on that real quick, is I think oftentimes there's a contrast between what reps are taught to do and how things actually operate. People would assume if you come after us, if you can get me, you're good. I'm the single thread. I'm the decision maker. So they don't even try, but that's also what they've been taught. They've been taught to go for the top, go for the decision maker. But that doesn't mean that you're in a good position, because I may not know everything about your product or how it'll impact people or how it'll be used. And so I think people actually get in more trouble when they actually get the DM early in the process, because if they don't navigate through, they think they have their point of contact. Like most people know better to single thread if they get a lower level, right? You get a manager, you know better than the single thread. But people get in trouble when they do land a Peter, they do land a me, and now they think, well, I have the most important person, I don't have to thread out, and then that's when deals start to fall apart.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, that's a great point, Kevin. Not only that, though, but there's also, we internally here, we try to get away from this term decision maker, because there's so many people involved, right? Like, even if you get to me and you're trying to sell them my org, if I'm being honest, there are other way more people involved in the decision. That account planning mechanism helps you be mindful of that, helps you understand that, I need to talk to everyone. I need to identify more people within the organization to really understand the impact of our solution.
Yeah. So like you both, when we were talking before, just kind of brainstorming, we were talking about something, people problems versus account problems, and how like on the customer side, those don't always match up. Like the pain I feel as a person doing my job that your solution can address might be different than the pain my organization has. Which means your process, your approach to that should mirror that. Can you talk a little bit more about how you each think about that and how you approach that differently?
Go for it, Peter.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's this mentality. We subscribe to proactive selling, right? And so we use this methodology above and below the line. So when we talk about people problems, account problems, it's finding that alignment, right? I know there's different methodologies out there, but at the end of the day, it's really understanding the problems that you solve and how do they tie to some of the overarching problems or issues that that organization is trying to solve or address. We call that leverage, right? When we can find and attach ourselves to an initiative that's not just on that individual level with our single, our handful of contacts, but it's a much larger issue. You can involve more people, involve other departments, and then you've got you got a lot of momentum, right? You got a lot of energy in your potential deal. And again, it comes down to that's where account planning fits in. You're now getting more complex. And whether it is an SMB deal or a large enterprise deal, this notion that there are multiple people involved, or there are multiple issues that we can solve, whether they be people or account problems, it's important to have a grasp on that. And as a sales rep, when you're doing so much, it's easy to get lost in that. Or as a sales leader, right, with Kevin and I, when we're looking at pipeline, we're looking at deals across a team of people. It's easy to lose that information or to lose grasp of what types of problems are we solving. Are sales reps asking the right questions? Are they talking to the right people? And so I think that's really important to keep in mind as you do your account planning. When you're looking at your account, what types of problems am I solving? Am I selling into an account, or am I just caught selling to this individual?
Yeah, when we were riffing on it before, I think we kind of came up like, people problems get attention. Mm-hmm. People problems get conversations. Account problems close deals. And that's where I think people need to determine both, right? Like, what are the people problems your product solves? That's what gets the attention. That's what maybe gets you in. That's how you like break into an account, is through people problems. It's really hard when you approach an account through account problems, right? Like, I love it when I get this outreach. It's like, we can 3x your pipeline. Account problem. I go, you don't know my pipeline. So how on earth can you claim that you have an account problem? But if you can approach me through a people problem, that's what gets the attention, and then learn about the account problem. And then we talked about this a little bit, the Challenger Customer. Go read it. Whoever's watching this, go read that book. It's actually better than Challenger Sale, which also most people didn't read or understand. But Challenger Customer, they talk about this. And they say what they found was when you tried to sell the 4.7 or the 7.8 or the 13 some decision makers now involved, if you try to sell them all on their own individual problems, which is what we've taught for a long time, that's actually why a lot of deals stall out, because there's not a unifying problem that they are trying to solve. You need to establish the account problem. Here's the one thing that we all know we're trying to fix and that we need to do the right way. Then the people problems are how you get engagement. So you need both, though. You need account problem, people problems, and then even there, you got different problems per people involved, because you've got users, you've got buyers, you have people that are impacted by it, and then you have decision makers. All of them will have different people problems, but you have to unify them on one account problem if possible.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that. And this is where we were talking about, we were talking about how like this aligns all the revenue teams, right? So this is where if the AE is the only one doing account planning, and maybe that's a problem too, because there's not an SDR focused on the people problems that's going to help them get into an account. So when we talk about like actually doing account planning, can you, Peter, can you tell us a little bit about how, like, who owns that? What's the process they go through to do account planning? Is it ongoing, or do they like sit down for an hour and just build out a document? How does it work for you guys?
Yeah. Before I get into that, I do want to add right there, Kevin, what you said was great. And it actually brings up a point that I do want to shed some light on. When we say multi-threading or preventing yourself trying to avoid being single-threaded, a lot of times we think, or sales reps will think, oh, it just means having one point of contact. If I have multiple points of contact, I'm not being single-threaded. But an important point to note there is that the single-threadedness can actually apply to, have you uncovered more than one issue, right? Are you just stuck on one person problem? Have you found the account problem? Are you multi-threading in terms of the problems that you're uncovering? So now to answer your question, Colin, how do you go about doing that? And who owns it? Honestly, within the org, it's great if you can get, for the sales leaders out there that are listening, this can be your initiative to drive coherence and accountability across your sales org or execution. If this to all of our individual contributors listening out there, it's on you to really make sure that you are approaching your accounts, that you are applying some type of account planning routine so that you don't miss those blind spots. What I will say, one of the best places to start is by creating a template, right? Whether you're a sales rep on the front lines or you're a leader that's trying to drive this initiative, one of the big ideas, hey, I want to create a process that can cut out a lot of the busy work for me, right? When people hear about account planning, they first think, oh, well, that's another step. I've got to do all of this. But when you do it right, you can actually eliminate a lot of the dead weight activities that you might have that you would go through in the absence of proper account planning. So I'd say my first step there is actually create a template on what that account plan should look like. I think Kevin, in our conversation, had some good insight on how he'd go about identifying the right way to approach account planning in that way, right? I'll let you talk about that, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, back to the earlier point of sales reps not knowing how people buy, you talk to your accounts. You talk to your accounts. You go talk to 10, 15, 20 accounts and say, how did you buy? Why did you buy? What problem were you hoping to solve? How many people were really involved? That's what I love with like all these stats and figures, right? They say like it's the 4.7 and like the 6. You know who's never actually done that research? Like us, our own people, to our market, to say how many people were involved, who were the people I never spoke to, who almost killed this deal, what was the unifying problem that you guys agreed to move forward on this, right? But you need to talk to your accounts to know, right? Now every account will say they're different. Most accounts behave relatively the same. If you talk to 20 or 30, you'll pick up on the patterns, and then that allows you to be a better seller because you make buying easy for me. That's one of the biggest things with account planning is if you know what the buying process is for an account like me, when we get off the call, you're already ahead. You're saying, okay, I know what you're going to have to do next. You're going to have to talk to finance. And I know finance cares about ROI and everything like that. So I prepared X, Y, and Z for you to be able to present to this person. Then we'll get them on the call, right? But talk to your accounts. If you have enough customers right now, go talk to them and find out what their process actually was. I'd be willing to bet most sales reps have no idea all the things that went on behind the scenes to get a deal done, right? Like Peter, I don't know for you, but if someone's selling into your account, right? Someone's trying to sell Lucid and you're the DM, how much work goes into after the sales call for you to get a deal done for something that you want?
Yeah, a ton of work. To your point, I mean, we would have a Daisy chart, some framework, assignments on what needs to be done. Multiple people get involved. If it's something, even if it's just a resource that my team will be using, there's other people, marketing might need to have a heads up. We might need to communicate to, and even within our sales org, right, you've got different stakeholders. And so it can get pretty complex pretty fast.
Yeah.
And so Kevin, on your team, like who you hold responsible for having a plan?
So, I mean, this comes down to my reps and then it comes to my managers to check in on, right? So the reps, and it's nice for us, like we don't have to do multi-org planning, but there's certain things that we look for every account that we're going after, right? So like our account planning, like, you know, we have a smaller ACV, we're SMB mid-market, we're not going after the Fortune 500, but there's still 7-8 things that I would expect my reps to know about every single account that we go after, right? So yeah, we have like our, you know, decision makers, but I want to know where they rank on Google right now. What are the keyword services? What's the highest value term that they offer on their website? How long have they been in business? Where are their reviews and rankings, and how do they compare to their competitors? That's 7 things right there for an SMB deal, that if we know those things, we work. Then when it comes to my managers, the first question they always ask is the account problem. What problem did they agree they have? That's the first question we ask in pipeline reviews. We're building that into Salesforce is, what problem did they agree they had? Because if you didn't get the account to agree they have a problem, you're not going to get the deal, right? And so that's small, that's SMB. And we do that for almost every single account we go after, because that's how we book more. And that's absolutely how we close more when we're going after them.
All right. So the way that your process becomes a real life thing is that it happens basically in one-to-ones, or like deal reviews, pipeline reviews with sales managers and reps, and it's in Salesforce. And it almost sounds like in my mind, I'm kind of drawing a connection between the account planning process and the qualification process. Am I skipping a beat there, or they feel a little bit similar?
They absolutely are. And depending on, you know, I have an easy ICP here, right? Like a qualifying process. I've had really, really strict qualification processes before. I think a lot of times account planning too, reps can hide behind it. And I know Peter can speak to this too, is like they'll spend a lot of time account planning and not account executing. But like they'll spend all this time account planning without ever qualifying the account to ensure that it even should be planned for, right? And that's a phone call. Like, I know there's all sorts of data tools out there, and there's all sorts of things you can do to like source it, but God damn it, sometimes just pick up the phone and ask, right? Call somebody at that company and go, yo, real quick, do you guys deal with this at all? Oh, no? Thank goodness. I just saved myself 10 hours of account planning, right? But the qualification process, to me, account planning is post-qualifying. You should never account plan for something you don't know is qualified.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
so two separate steps. Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I was going to say big shout out to, you know, that's one thing that our SDR managers, Ruby, is working on with her team. Big shout out to them is this focus on disqualification, right? I think as salespeople, we want to hear the yes so much that we try to find ways to make it fit. And some ways it's best, like to what you said, Kevin, it saved us all that time. People ask, well, do I need to account plan for every account in my book? And the answer is no, you need to qualify first, right? And understand and have an understanding of your book or what you're working with. And then you can allocate the time necessary to account plan. I know we're going to talk about a little bit later, how much should I allocate? What should that look like? But I mean, that's a great point that I want to make sure we touch on. It doesn't get touched on enough. It's this idea of disqualify to protect your own time or your sales team's time, and then go ahead and start doing your account planning on that.
Mm-hmm. Can I say one thing there real quick, Colin, real fast? I want to make sure for any like AEs listening, interest is not a qualifier. I just want to make sure we're very clear on that. Just because they're not interested right now does not mean they are disqualified. Because sometimes that's where people take it, is they're like, oh, well, they're not interested, so DQ. No, wrong. The account, I think we're going to get to this. There's a difference between an account and a person. Account doesn't have feelings. Accounts aren't interested or not interested. Accounts don't buy. A person bought. So one person at that account was not interested, but the account is qualified or not qualified based on whatever terms it is that you have. I just wanted to make sure, because like I know people love to twist qualification into interest level, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Michael Klein says in chat that no interest is an interest level. And I think, that, I mean,
all right.
some Zen stuff right there, Michael. I like it.
Great.
All right. So Peter, and you both brought this up. I think part of the reason people avoid starting account planning is they feel like it's a big time suck, like they're going to spend some time doing stuff. And then you said there's the other side of the coin where maybe reps will hide behind it and say they're doing account planning. So Kevin, it sounds like your process, if there are reps asking the right questions, account planning could be done in like, what, 10, 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it can be done pretty simply. We can go find this information online or other tools and resources that we have. It doesn't take that much time, but even my reps struggle with this sometimes. Where like they're spend so much time researching, right? Trying to find all the things they can before just going after, right? And so that's why we have like our nuggets. What are the most important things you need to find out? You don't need to know everything about an account. You need to know the core things about an account that allow you to get into the account. A lot of reps, and I think Peter can give some insight here, I think spend time trying to find things out about an account that actually you have to get into the account to find out. Right. Yep. And so there, I couldn't find this, or I couldn't find this, right? It's like, because you haven't gotten in yet. Once you get in, right, account planning doesn't stop, by the way. I think we haven't touched on this yet. You don't just account plan. You don't just go, okay, my account is now planned, and then go. Like, you got to update that shit while you are working the account, because you're going to learn new things. So like the templates that I think are so important is there's certain things that are blank until you reach a certain level, until you've gotten someplace, and now it's time to update your account plan because you learned something new.
Not only that, but the account plan, you have to have that dynamic approach, like you're saying, Kevin, that it's not one and done, and it's never absolute, because business initiatives change, right? Pains change. What might be an initiative right now with your customer that they're working on solving, they might solve it. And then they've got a new set of initiatives that you have to go and uncover and tackle. It goes to your point about the account plan being so crucial, even on the CS side, once the deal's already done, because if your product's doing its job, the initiatives will change. You'll have to help them solve that problem, and another problem will pop up. So I think that's a big, important point to cover, is that the account plan is never done. How much time you invest in it and what that template looks like, that's up to each org and different nuances of your sales cycle and your customer base, your market. But I think that's an important point to keep in mind, is that the account plan is never done. It's a constant living document or living concept.
Yeah. And I'd rather spend, Colin, and I'd rather spend a month account planning than 7 months in a sales cycle that could have been 3. Like, it pays off in the long run, because if you didn't plan the account ahead of time, either account planning is going to happen no matter what. Either you did it up front and it helps you sell, or now you're trying to account plan while trying to sell. And that's going to take significantly longer, and you're going to lose deals because of it. Like, that upfront effort it's worth it. It pays off in the long run, because now you're working strategically versus just winging it and hoping that it happens.
So Gabe asked a good question. Gabe, I know I should know how to pronounce your last name, but I'm just going to wing it. Vilamizar? Hopefully I did that right. I think you guys both know Gabe. Gabe's question is, should SMBs do account planning, account mapping? You're both talking from the position of quickly growing medium to large size businesses. Maybe some of the people in the audience aren't in your shoes. They feel like maybe they're more strapped, they're SMBs. Should they be doing this?
If you're going outbound, absolutely. If you're doing any sort of outbound work, yes. And then you pick and choose where. We are SMB through and through. Like, we're selling to sole proprietors sometimes. It's one person, right? That practice is who we're going after. And we still do this sort of planning going in, because it also does help us know who to go after, right? Not all accounts are even. So that's why I wanted to, if you're doing outbound, yes. Inbound, if things are just coming to you and it's SMB, you probably don't have to do too much account planning. But if you're going out, if I account plan for 5 accounts, perfect example, like for us, this just happened last week. One of the practices we were going after, it's a good size practice. It would be more like in our mid-market. They already rank for all of their keywords on the first page. They already have 200 some plus positive reviews. They already have online booking. Their website speed was perfect. Their website schema was really good. They rank in the Google Maps section. All the problems that we solve, they had none of, right? And then we have another account in the same area that's on the second page, no reviews, doesn't have multi-site, doesn't rank well, doesn't have schema. Who should we go after, right? That's also what account planning can help you do, even in SMB, is like, well, why would I try to kill myself trying to crack into this like perfectly looking account versus, well, I already know this one needs help. So SMB outbound, absolutely account plan.
Yep. I'll echo that. I'll also just add that, it depends again on your org, your cycle, as you've seen with Kevin's example. And that's why that template is such a key. You create that template so you don't end up doing more work than necessary, or you don't end up doing too little work than you need, right? So an example, enterprise, large, complex, strategic deal. Yeah, the template's probably going to be a little bit more involved. I'm going to have to go get more information. I need to identify more stakeholders. If it's an SMB account plan, the template's probably much more simple, right? And so it is something that needs to be dynamic. So keep that in mind to all our listeners, that your account plan template is a big tool, big lever to ensure that you're doing account planning right. And then your account plan is dictated by the nuances of your sales motion.
So speaking of templates, Peter, I know you're a big fan of having there be like a visual aspect to the account planning process, like an actual map or some kind of document. And it sounds like, from what you're saying, there might be a couple different templates you use depending on the type of sale you're going after. Can you shed a little light on what that process looks like, what those templates actually look like?
Yeah, for sure. Short of doing a screen share, I mean, I can describe it. This account planning can be, anywhere from multiple pages or just a single page. We are big, being from Lucidchart, we are big evangelists of working visually. The idea that you can communicate a lot of information with a graphic interface and graphic representation of your information, of your data. And so these templates, when we talk about, some of them can be simple as they'll have a section, a blank space for, stakeholders that I need to identify. Others can be a little bit more complex that actually have a map of the world, right? And when I'm working a complex deal, I've got areas on my account plan that represent different offices. Or I have a Gantt chart that shows the timeline that our customers working towards to be able to execute on their implementation path when they want to implement and go live with a solution. So all of these are elements that you can include on that. I think the biggest part is the account map, right? It kind of looks, if I describe it with words, it's similar to an org chart that shows the relationship of the people with whom I'm working with. Or even people, I've got pictures in their representation shapes on my document that represent people I need to contact. Right? So we've seen it work with some of our customers where their account planning process is a blank canvas, and they have different departments that they sell into that are different sections on that document. And the account executive and the account development rep go through together and they identify who they want to talk to. And then over that week, they work together to reach out. And to Kevin's point, they actually spend the time account executing on that account plan. And so that's just a quick high level of what I've seen work really well with some of our customers and how they account plan.
So I will say, I love Lucidchart, and this is just me talking. I don't even pay for the account. I just have a free user account. And if you're watching this wondering what an account planning template could look like, you can go create a free Lucidchart account and do a search. There's tons of free templates that could serve as jumping off points for you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Colin. And also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and shoot me a message. It's something that I'm personally really passionate about as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Peter, it sounds like there are a couple different templates that your teams use. Who creates it? When do they create it? Like you said, after qualifying. What's the process?
So templates are already created there. We did that more of an org level, right, from our sales leadership, sales enablement teams. And so they've created those templates, and then it's executed and carried forth from driven by our managers, right? But to answer your question, anyone can drive that. If you're org and you're not account planning right now and you want to start doing that, you can start with just a single person, right? Creating just a quick, simple, hey, this is what I think I need to have in my account plans. I'll tell you, quick hint out there for you individual contributors that are working your territories. It's a great way to communicate to your teams, to peers, to other teams, marketing, CS, and it's a really great way to commute up to through your sales leadership, through your executive team, because they're able to quickly see, wow, you've done a lot of work in this on this account. We can see what you've done, and so I think it's great when used in that way.
Yeah, even if it's a simple map for like a smaller or mid-sized account, having something to show, even if it only took 10 minutes to fill out the template. And so does every account that your team sell to get an account plan or an account map, or is it done like on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, great question. So what we've done, our internal initiative here is our top strategic accounts, right? So every rep, whether they're mid-market or enterprise, they've identified these are the top accounts that I want to get into. We ask for account maps. We require account maps on those accounts. With some of our other clients that are working, you've got a small book, 4 or 5 accounts, and you've got this big number to hit, very strategic, very enterprise, then yeah, you would see an account map for every one of those. On an SMB, like Kevin's saying, it'll also be probably more your strategic, right? I've got this large book, a lot of accounts because I have a lower ACV. Then maybe it's just my top 3, top 5 accounts, right? That I might apply this account plan to. Well, what's interesting to note, we just sat down with a customer yesterday, and where the account plan is also really powerful is when they do their executive business reviews. So it decreases the work of the rep because they're not having to go in and create a new slide presentation and create a presentation to communicate to their executives. They just go right into the their account plan and walk through that in their EVRs.
So another question from Michael Klein is asking, like, how do you balance doing the plan, doing it right, having the right template with overanalysis? We touched on this a little bit earlier, but Kevin, you want to hit on that again?
Yeah, honestly, Michael, and it depends on who's helping create the plan, but it's identifying what are need to haves and what are nice to haves, right? So I think of it a lot like we have like a coffee mug here. You can only put 100%, you can only fill coffee up to here. That's all you can do. Outside of that, you're just pouring coffee all over your desk, right? So like, I need to fill this, right? Do I need whipped cream on it? Nah, does it make it good? Yes, but the need to haves. What do you need to have to go after an account? That's what starts the plan. The moment you check those 7 boxes or those 10 boxes or get the foundation filled, that needs to trigger go. If you don't have that, you also shouldn't be moving to any of the nice to haves. If you haven't completed your need to have account plannings, don't spend time researching the nice to haves up top. Complete your foundational thing. And once that's completed, you trigger. That is your signal to go forward as you try to go after an account. But a lot of reps spend too much time doing the nice to haves without ever finishing the need to haves. And then they don't know why either one, they didn't go after the account, or why they can't break in because they didn't get the foundational things in place. So check those boxes and then go. That'd be my best recommendation.
Right. And so we think we've hit on like all the process steps to doing account planning, but we did it out of order. So Peter, would you mind summing up for us, if we want to start account planning, where do we start? Like, how do we build a process around it? How do we scale it? How do we enforce it?
Yeah, I think Kevin touched on this, right? Is really understanding your existing accounts. Because that'll give you insight on what you should include in this account plan. Some things I recommend are information about your account, right? Example, are they public versus private? What industry are they in? What's even the size of the org in terms of employee account? What's the size of, give you an idea of the white space. So you have your high level account information there, right? Stuff you would see in Salesforce. And then you can put more specific things to your product, right? Like if you're looking for someone that's using Salesforce, right? You're selling a sales acceleration platform, then I want to target, you put those characteristics in your account plan so you can identify those. I think a big part that's really important is an org chart. Even if it's simple for SMB, maybe I normally go after the director of IT and someone else, someone in finance. I'll put those 2 spaces in my template. So then you put your org chart or who you're going after, and then make sure you're labeling the different types of people that are playing a part in this, depending on the methodology that you subscribe to, right? With you might label it this person's a champion, this person's an influencer, etc. I think that's the first way to go about creating that template. How to enforce it? If you're a sales leader, the best way to enforce it again is inspect it regularly, right? Set those expectations with your team. Use it, have it be central to your one-on-ones, to your pipeline reviews, to your deal reviews. Pull up that account plan, be referencing it, and use it as that single source of truth as you coach with your reps. So I think that's a big part of enforcing that and helping that, driving the accountability and execution within your sales org.
I think the key too is that you both noted that this is iterative. So you can't like start with a perfect idea of what the perfect account mapping process or template's going to look like and then just like put it in place and run with it. Like this is something like you're doing it for your strategic top accounts right now, Peter. I'm sure you learn from that and you take those lessons you've learned and put it into how you sell to other accounts, but also like, has that template changed over time?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we look at it changed a lot when you're first implementing it. We'll see this too with customers that are kicking off their initial account map initiatives, is that they'll have an idea, right? Enablement or sales leaders will get in a room, they'll have this idea of the right template, they'll roll it out, and they'll quickly come back with feedback from the reps. Hey, we got to change this. This piece isn't relevant, or this piece never gets filled out. And why? It's usually because it's not adding any value. So being open to that, again, that dynamic mentality of, hey, we need to iterate. Now, as you start getting that, getting those revisions rolled out and implemented, you'll notice that the time between or the changes you have to make actually decrease, right? You'll get to a point where now, like our account plans, they probably change maybe at a quarter or every 2 quarters, because we're honing in on that process. But be open to having it be an iterative process. I think your sales team will appreciate that as well, because they'll take ownership on that because they're contributing to this process.
Right.
And if you're just getting started with this, like, let the data help you a little bit, right? Like I'm a simple man. I try to keep things as simple as I possibly can. It's like, what actually matters, right? And so work with your data team. If you don't have a data team, go find someone who can put together like an analysis of what are like the 7 to 9, 10 key characteristics that matter the most on the deals that you're winning and getting, right? So for some industries, size of company matters. For some, it doesn't. For some, revenue of that company matters. Some, it doesn't. So it's knowing what are things that actually matter that go into the, kind of I was saying before, the must-haves, right? Let the data guide that a little bit, because guess what? I don't need to know the revenue of the accounts I'm going after. It doesn't matter for me. I don't need to know certain things that in other industries I had to know, right? But let the data guide it, because oftentimes too, we'll be wrong there. We're like, oh, well, clearly the sweet spot is from 25 to 50 million rev, and so I have to go do those types of accounts. Make sure the data backs you there, right? So then you have the account mapping, but then also putting the people in. So like when I do the org charts, I do like to do org chart by section. User org chart, influencer, impact org chart, buyer org chart, right? Because it's very easy to put, Peter at the top and then everyone else underneath. But is Peter a user, someone who's impacted by it, or is he the buyer, right? And then whenever you see overlap, right? So if Peter is a user and a buyer, okay, he's prime territory. This is someone I have to keep engaged. If you ever get the triple, right? A user, a buyer, and impacted, that's someone you have to involve all the way through. But including your account planning, talking to the users, who's going to use your tool the most, talking to the people that will be impacted by your tool the most. Those are things that help warm up the buyer at the top. And I think a lot of people skip that when they account plan, is they plan for the account, but then they forget the people side of it as well.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it can help inform like your strategy. Do you start low, go high, like we were talking about earlier? I'm just going to pause for 1 second, everybody. We've got about 15 minutes left. If you have questions about your process, like let us know how you're doing account planning right now. Kevin and Peter can weigh in on how it's working for you, or how you might be able to improve it. Now's your chance. Sneak in some questions. So Kevin and Peter, I want to throw this back to you guys on when we were riffing earlier, we were talking about start low, go high, etc. Can you talk a little bit more about that? You had some interesting ideas, Kevin.
Yeah, I am a firm believer in bottoms up selling. Firm believer. You go to the bottom not to sell, but you go to the bottom to get information that helps you sell to the top, right? If you come after me and you've never spoken to anyone on my team, I already know you know nothing about my business. You know nothing about my problems. You know nothing about my account, right? It's easier to get in touch with, more often than not, the users and the people that will be impacted by your product, because there's also tends to be more of them, right? Someone put it in the comments here that there's 13 decision makers in a deal. You're right. You know how many users there are at a company that has 13 decision makers? Who do you think is easier to get in touch with, right? Like, it wouldn't be that hard. So I believe in starting at the bottom to get information to bring to the top so that you can actually have an educated conversation, right? By the time you get me or a Peter on the line, it shouldn't be to do discovery. If you think I'm going to give you 30 minutes for me to tell you about my problems when you don't know them yet, it doesn't work that way. But if you've spoken to 2 of my SDRs, 2 of my sales managers, and my enablement person, and you bring my problems to me, that's what account planning, like this whole account-based everything, apparently everyone forgot that you have to touch the whole account, right? Everyone's talking ABM, account-based everything, account planning, but they just still are focusing on the very top and a few people under. Go low, get the information you need to bring to the top. That's how you work an account, like every single time. And depending on your sales cycle, if you're at the top, asking who at the bottom you should talk to. Who are the users? Hey, KD, who's actually going to use this product if you sign up? Oh, that would be my account executives. Cool. Could I get 3 of them on the call? I have never been asked that once, ever, of who's going to use this product if you buy, and can I talk to them? Like that's how you work an account. So start low to get the information. It's easier. There's more people you can find. There's more people you can call and email, and then work your way up to the top and work back down again.
Yeah, I like that example, Kevin, where you say work that back down again as well, right? Because you're also, what you did there in your example, you're giving them homework, right? Hey, who are the 3 AEs that I can talk to, right? You're giving them homework, and it allows you as a salesperson to gauge the energy. Right? Because you're having to chase just to get in contact with those 3 people, because you're asking down, right? All too often, we're always, as salespeople, we're accustomed to asking up. Hey, can you introduce me to your boss? Can you introduce me to people that involve this decision? Now that you've gotten to the top, you're asking for this intro down. You're giving them that homework, and you can gauge if there is energy, and if I am talking to the right person that can mobilize this.
Yeah. And one quick note on that, it depends on the account, obviously, as you go through it, but I like homework for engagement, but I also like trying to take homework away, right? Where it's like, all right, who are the 3 I need to talk to? Cool, I'll reach out to them. Give me those names so you don't even have to. Just tell me it's Bob, Jenny, and Steph. I'll reach out to them. Are their emails Steph@Superbiz? Yep. Like, so we're engaged, right? They gave me the names, and that's the signal of engagement, but I want to take as much work away from my like main POC as I can, because I know for me, right? And Peter, you're in this world right now. It's end of quarter. You think I'm completing any homework for anybody other than myself right now?
Nope.
Right? But they could still be working behind the scenes to help this process, like this program, move forward. There are in my inbox right now, I don't know if any reps, who are chasing me down for the end of the quarter, right? They're trying to get me on to try to close the deal at the end of the quarter right now, but there's still steps I haven't completed yet because I had to complete them. If they had taken ownership to help me complete those steps, the deal would be moving along right now versus already being a month now pushed out. So that's how I kind of like to use the account together, for a program.
Love it. I love how you've got both sides of the coin there, delegating tasks for engagement and taking homework away. We've got an example, I think, from Chase, and I've asked for more detail, but maybe you guys can weigh in on this right now. Chase is selling a niche software to innovation managers. Sounds like a pretty specific role. Not a lot of companies have innovation managers. And he's constantly redirected to single contacts who are responsible for vetting and purchasing. Sounds like procurement to me. Any tips for branching out in such cases?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin. You're going to.
No, you can kick this one off.
Yeah, I was going to say, we actually see this a lot here at Lucidchart, right? Where a lot of times we enter into accounts from a freemium perspective, and then it bubbles up, and we move up, and we've identified the decision influencers, and then we are redirected. And what happens there is, what happens more often than not is that we haven't found those account problems, right? We haven't found those business initiatives. Internally, we call them trains, right? We haven't found those trains that need to leave the station. And so you get redirected. There's not enough energy behind that. So tips on branching out, I think, continue to be multi-threaded. You get redirected to that single contact. That's fine to have that conversation, but before you can get redirected, as you're talking to these people above the line that you want to talk to, these desired contacts, get to a point where you're uncovering their account problems, where you're uncovering their initiatives, and then you'll have more energy to keep talking about that, right? Because I'll give you an example. It happens to me, right? When someone approaches me with some issue, I might, if it's not big enough, it's not attached to what I'm really focused on right now going into 2020, it'll get redirected. But if it's something that it's top of mind for me, then I'll stay on it and talk to it, and I'll be involved in this. There's energy in it. So I think that's it's a tip. Try that and let us know how that works. Kevin, you
No, that it's the problem. If you're getting redirected to purchasing, it either means you didn't establish the problem well enough, or you didn't get enough other people involved, right? Like there's two ways it happens. If I'm interested in something, I think this is what Peter was kind of just saying there. If I'm interested in something, I don't redirect you to purchasing. I bring you to purchasing, right? Like purchasing is there to help me buy. People get this twisted. Like purchasing is not there to disrupt payment. Purchasing's job is literally to purchase. So if I want something, if I want it, I'm bringing you into purchasing to get it done. If I don't want it, I'm pushing you to purchasing because I know they'll tell you no. So if you're getting pushed early in the process, it means you haven't established a strong enough want or need for your product. Get that first, then go to purchasing, right? And you'll be escorted in versus just kind of pushed off. So I hope that helps, but focus on what Peter said. Get the problem first, because then you can help. Even like we've helped draft RFPs, right? Like I know you guys do this too. Like if you get in early enough, you get to help write the RFP. Yep. Right. And you can put in really specific things, like the company we work with has to start with an L and rhyme with Lucid, right? Like you can put that shit in there because you're involved early, but you have to earn that right.
I like that. So it sounds like you're saying basically like your framework, the people problem, account problem, you haven't gotten the interest of the person enough. You haven't said, okay, here's your people problem. I know this is what's going to get you to be my champion, just for a few seconds, to be interested enough to like have a real conversation with me.
Exactly.
Nice. I like that framework. I think we've got a few more minutes. I don't see any other questions bubbling up. You still have a minute. Throw them in. Peter, anything you think we've missed on the topic?
No, I think just start doing it, right? And it doesn't have to be elaborate. I think some of the feedback I hear when people will say, yeah, we know we need to do it. We have a desire to do it, but we just don't have the time or resources. And so my answer to that is, well, start small, right? The idea is helping your team approach it and have that mindset of, okay, what is my account plan for this? What do I need to do there? So I'd say start small. Again, I can't stress enough the importance of templates. You have the templates because it helps prevent that analysis paralysis. It helps prevent either the sales reps not knowing what to do or the sales reps spending all of their time on it as an excuse to not execute or not to talk to people. Have that template. And I think it's a big key that I want to keep driving.
Yeah, and everybody, if you look in the chat, Gabe threw out an account mapping / planning template that he made in Lucidchart. If you can't get in there or you're watching the recording, we'll send this out in the email that we send the recording out in. So you should see it in that email.
So Liam just put a really good question in here around if going bottoms up, if the people at the bottom feel threatened by your product or your tool, right? That if going bottom, they're like, well, wait a minute, that could replace what I do, or that could replace me. So really good question, Liam. There's two ways you avoid this. Either one, you have to reframe your product to what is a people problem they have that you do solve. And if you don't, then you do have to skip that level. If your tool will not positively impact a certain level, then you need to skip. But there's probably another level up. So perfect example here. Like if it's the actual SEO person, the person above them, the manager, is probably a better point of contact because their job is to make sure what the SEO people are doing gets done. So you're going one level up. You didn't jump all the way to CEO, but yeah, if your product, this is why the account mapping, back to what we talked about, is so important. Users, impacted, and buyers. If those impacted aren't like a user, you need to go find the ones to do that, right? So yeah, I've had to sell that before too, where they feel like they're going to be replaced, or they feel like it's part of their job. You've got to reverse it. It's like, does it positively impact them in any way? No. Go another level or find another route in and through.
I love that answer. This might be a really good one too. So Michael Klein's good question. How do you ask the right way to be escorted to the top of an account?
So
you know,
if you're doing it really well, you don't have to ask.
Yeah.
If you're doing it really well, you don't have to ask. Now, if you are asking to go to the top, there has to be a good reason, right? And you got to remember, buyers, we buy, we know. So when you say, hey, how do we get the CFO involved? I know what you're trying to do. Like, I know, like, no, we're not like whatever through it, but here's how you flip it. You have to make, if you know I want it, this is what we teach here. I teach this in a lot of places. You first have to confirm your point of contact is sold. And by sold, meaning, do they want what you have, right? So, Peter, do you want this? Is this something that you want for your org? Yes. Why? Why do you want it? Make the buyer say back to you why they want those things. This is then where you can go for the next step, Michael, and you say, well, cool. The best way to make this happen for you is if we get on the call with Bob, because what I've seen is Bob will just look at the contractor, Bob will just look at this, and he'll just say no, and you won't get what you want. So how do we get on Bob's good side, right? So it's a we conversation, but there has to be something in it for me, right? And it's to get me what I want. That's how I would approach
Absolutely.
that.
As someone who spent, and I'm sure you guys did too, some time as a lower level manager, it's pretty insulting to have a salesperson say to you, so you're not the right person, are you? Or like, oh, could you tell me if you're the right person to make this decision? Guys, we know what you're doing, and it hurts our feelings. So just try to help us first, and then we'll help.
And let me tie that back to the account plan, right? You really need to understand the org, because if you're not careful, right? And I love that tactic, Kevin. That's what you should do. But you also got to be mindful of, okay, who am I doing this with? Because if depending on the levels, right? It's a way that we train it here is that if you're doing it with the wrong level, it's like asking someone at the kids table to go take you and intro you over to the adult table, you know?
Right.
So be mindful of that. That's where the account plan comes in. Hey, what is the nature? What are the relationships of who I'm going to ask for this? So be mindful of that as you do your account planning.
Yeah, and I want to keep piggybacking off that because he nailed it. One of the things he said earlier about that org chart, you need to know who to ask for next.
Right.
Don't skip a level. Like, don't just assume like, okay, cool, we got KD, check. All right, next is the CFO. Who is next? Like, maybe it is IT next, or maybe it is. So like, check the right person off. That's why when he talked org chart and flow, like, you need to know who to ask for. People jump levels too fast. Like, you think that the manager is going to bring you to the CFO, right? Like, it doesn't work that way. I'm probably not even bringing you to the CFO. I'm going to go get my senior financial planner involved in this first to make sure that I'm not like blowing up my budget for the next year before I look stupid in front of my CFO, right? So making sure that we do the things the right way.
There it is. All right, we are in a place where we need to wrap it. Kevin from Patient Pop, Pierre from Lucid, thank you both so much for joining us. Great conversation. And to the audience, amazing participation, guys. I knew you would do us a solid and actually ask questions. Thanks for joining. If you want to start, I do recommend checking out Lucid Chart. Make a free account and check out some templates. It's a good way to jump into it. All right, everybody, thanks for being here. We'll talk to you all soon.